my passion, is to connect the human energy with the soul's energy. And together, wow, now you've got your best life.
Elaine Glass. At the height of a successful career, Elaine found herself at an emotional crossroads. Instead of feeling a sense of accomplishment and deep satisfaction with where her life had taken her, all she felt was disconnected and unfulfilled. Can you define quiet? What does that mean for you?
Presence.
Is there a sustained amount of time that you feel as though you need to remain in presence or quiet in order for you to hear the soul, to connect with the soul? Or is it any moment of presence for any duration of time?
Any moment.
How do you go through the process of getting quiet?
Getting quiet to me,
This quiet thing sounds interesting to me. Do you recommend, or is it necessary to set an intention for that duration? Or is it just enough to simply commit to being quiet?
it's a great question. And the answer would be
With the story of the labyrinth. So I looked this up because I honestly didn't know what a labyrinth was. And it says, Webster, a complicated, irregular network of passages or paths in which it is difficult to find one's way, a maze. If I hear you right, you don't necessarily define a labyrinth the same way. How do you?
that's correct. It is not to confuse. It is not a maze. That is the old definition, I think based off of some David Bowie movie called The Labyrinth, where, they were on this journey, these two kids, and they were, getting stuck. And yeah, that is not what a traditional labyrinth is. A traditional labyrinth is a 4,000-year-old ancient contemplative learning meditative path. There's only one way in and one way out. Yes, it does circle and traverse several different paths. There are various paths numbered. There could be 7, there could be 12 paths. But a traditional labyrinth that I'm referring to, and that I had my personal transformation around, was this metaphor for starting at the outside of the labyrinth, which is the outside of your world, and going inward to the center, which is the center of you, yourself, to go within. So that's how I define the labyrinth.
What was the first exposure that you got? It's an interesting story, actually, if you don't mind telling it. The first time you were exposed to this concept or place of the labyrinth, what was that and how did that come to be?
I was set to go get my kids from school. I had about an hour before pickup time. I went to a local coffee shop and I ran into this guy who was waiting for his coffee as well. And something inside of me said, stay for this conversation. Normally I'd be rushing around, always in my head, like, let's just go to the next thing. But I stopped and I paused and I listened to that voice. And he and I sat and talked for a few minutes. He ended up being a recovering addict and told me his story, and where he found some peace and quiet was at this retreat center. And I may really enjoy it. And so I picked up my kids that day. And later on that evening, I ended up realizing this labyrinth was only a half a mile from my house. And I'd lived by it for over 20 years and I didn't even know it was there. So later on that day, I went to this retreat center. The very first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. I could hear the birds chirping. I could hear the sound of the crunch and the gravel under my feet. I could also hear myself. And this was a new concept because at that point my life had really fallen apart. I had gotten divorced. I went from a stay-at-home mom living in the lap of luxury to a single mom living in a small 2-bedroom home, full-time working. So my life had gotten chaotic, and I got to this place of quiet, and I started to walk the labyrinth. And I got to a certain point, and I heard clear messages from what I call my inner truth, or my soul, my essence. And I heard the first message, and that was surrender. And I thought, surrender? Are you kidding me? Like, if I surrender, everything's going to fall apart in my life. Like, I was just trying to control everything, or else I knew everything would fall apart. But it was a clear message, surrender. So I get back to my car, I turned on the car radio, and the message that the person on the radio said was the word surrender. So I thought, okay, there's something going on at this labyrinth. But it kind of freaked me out. In fact, I didn't go back for a month. I just knew that something was important there, but I didn't know if I was ready. I didn't know if I was really ready to hear my soul's voice.
What brought you back a month later? Why go back a month later? What was the impetus for that?
I was ready.
Hmm.
I was ready to heal. I was ready to really, really be able to face the truth of my life. I think that we are, I know I have been just addicted to looking away at the truth of my life. And I said, this isn't working anymore. I need to really get real and face my life head on. And I knew that I could do this there because it came in little bits and pieces, and it was gentle and it was loving and it wasn't forceful. So that felt good. Just the way that I was just taking it in every single time I would go there. And I would get clear messages that I was trusting, that were clearly guiding me in the right direction, which is what I was desperate for.
You got this message to surrender a month prior. It's such a broad concept. Did you ever? And if so, what does that mean exactly for you? What did surrender look like? Can you give me the physical view of is it collapse to the floor? Is it stop doing everything and tell your kids to go in the other room? Like when did you? And can you give me a sense of, for you, what did that mean, surrender? And how did you know you were doing it? I guess it's like 8 questions in there, but Tribe listeners, I have an extremely exciting announcement for all of you. Do you want to come hang out with Cody Sanchez, David Osborne, David Green, Rich Roll, and even yours truly down in Austin, Texas? Well, let's do it. May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, for the first time ever, GoBundance, the exclusive millionaire membership group, is opening up an event to anyone, man, woman, millionaire or not, and we're calling it the Austin Entrepreneurial Summit. At the AES, you'll meet all those people I mentioned, plus GoBundance members on both the men's and women's side, and I'll be there hanging out the entire time. Every event I've ever attended for GoBundance has given me a disproportionate return on the money spent and the time spent to get there. And this is the biggest one that GoBundance has ever done. So if you're a member, not a member, and you're looking to supercharge the second part of your year, 2024, this event in May is a great way to get that all kickstarted. Go to GoBundance.com/AES right now for early bird pricing for members and guests. And warning, the power of GoBundance events is that it holds you accountable long after you're gone to achieving whatever goals you've set. So this event will change your life. GoBundance.com/AES. I'll see you there. Let's get back to the show. I think
I love that question because I've really pondered this a lot, because there's a lot of times in our lives where we have to surrender. Right. So what does that mean? What does that look like? How does that feel? In that moment, what I heard was, the clear message was, surrender like a duck. Forgot that part. And so the image that came to me was this vulnerable creature. Surrender to your vulnerability. So that was really the full message. So what surrender means to me, I think surrendering is the most vulnerable thing you can do, because really what we're doing is we're saying to an unseen force, whether you believe that there's some, energy outside of us as human beings, which I firmly believe, that we can trust the unseen. That's what surrender means to me, is I was trusting the unseen and putting my faith in what I couldn't see, but that was coming back to me. Like the second time I went to the Labyrinth, I started humming this Michael Jackson song. These messages come in ways that only you can really recognize. I mean, someone who's 13 is not going to recognize a Michael Jackson song, but I started humming, "You are not alone. I am here with you." And I was like, oh, you aren't alone. I'm here with you. And I know that's a lot to read into things, but at the time I was desperate to hear a clear message from me, not the outside world. I mean, there's a million messages, as we know. I needed this to be my own message, my own personal message from the heavens above. I got back to my car. What do you think the song was playing on my car
Come
radio?
on.
Not
No.
joking. This happened time and time again.
Yeah.
And why this happens is because we are in this energy flow.
Yeah.
We just get tapped in, and life takes us on a beautiful ride when we get connected like this.
Can can you, and I think you've answered this, but I want to be really, really clear on it. Surrender can feel like, I mean, the physical act. You think about like surrender, put your hands up and stop. Is surrender synonymous with stop? Is surrender more go? Can you give me a sense? Like I hear from you that surrender is sort of like give in to where you're being pulled, where you're being drawn, which could mean heavy activity. It could mean like not dropping to your knees and putting your hands up and not moving anymore, but it could mean surrendering to what is. So we're surrendering to an energy, to a drive, to a motivation, to a bigger life or whatever. Can you further that? Is surrender stop or is that overly simplified?
Your questions are so great. um, I'm just tickled by this conversation, I have to say.
Good, good.
Surrender is, yes, surrender is very active, but it's also to stop. It's also to pause. And the pause is what I call the awakening. What are we pausing to? Why are we pausing? It's to awaken. So that's the first step of surrendering. It is that first pause. It is that like, oh, what do I need to do right now? The first step, pause, acknowledge what's happening, and say, I'm ready to awaken to my life. Our life and everything that is happening every day is our teacher. These are the lessons we're here to learn. And so when we surrender and know this, we awaken to the beauty of this life. And now everything and everyone that comes into your life, you realize is a lesson. You realize they have a message for you and you have a message for them. And now every communication you have, like we have today, I am not lost on the belief that I am here with you right now and you are here with me right now out of 7 billion people on the planet for a reason.
Yeah.
And if that's just for you to say one sentence that I need to hear today to awaken my soul to a higher state of consciousness, then that's why we came here together in this opportunity. So that's how I view life, and I think that's how I came in. I've always wanted to be the person to lift people up, but I had to fill myself with the light in order to give that and help people do that. So that's my purpose. That's why I'm here.
I love this. I love every bit of this. And I had to jot a question down before I forgot. But I wanted to share this. You talked about how a song or music can really unlock or align, or it's a sign, right? And I believe the same thing. Similar experience. This was October 1st, 2018. I remember the date because it's my 40th birthday, and I had just gone through a retreat. So my sort of moment of you were talking about unfulfillment. What is this? Maybe it was my awakening. Came late 30s, 38, 39, and I start to dive into my own personal development, culminating with this retreat, which was not quiet per se, but the quietest I had been. I allowed
Mm.
myself to talk to other people on that level, sort of a spiritual level or a you. I think you get the point. Most people listening get the point. I'm driving back. This was Montreal, and I was living in Michigan. So I'm driving. It was like 15 hours, maybe more than that. And this song called Secrets by One Republic came on, and it played for about 7 hours straight. And if you hear the lyrics of that song, it's I need another story, something to get off my chest. My life is kind of boring. There's something that I can't confess. And then it goes into um, uh, giving all your secrets away, right? That's essentially the song. I'm going to give all my secrets away. And when you read, I remember Googling, like, what do the lyrics to the song mean? And I had my own interpretation, but it's essentially, at least how I interpret it and how most do, it's like I just got to get all of whatever I believe is what I am or who I am. I got it. It's coming out. I'm releasing it all, and we'll talk about energy centers and everything that you talk about, like kneecaps, all of it. But I'm releasing it all, and there's a new version of me on the other side. Not instant, not as if all the results then came, but it was the beginning or the birth of a new version of me. And that song, I mean, I can only imagine how ridiculous I look driving in a minivan, 15 hours from Canada to Michigan, crying my eyes out on my 40th birthday, listening to Ryan Tedder scream Secrets for 7 straight hours. So, but it was exactly what I needed in that moment. It was exactly the sign that I needed in that moment. And that it was no coincidence that that song came on and I just kept repeating it. It was just like a Apple playlist, random playlist, like you choose Apple, right? And that popped up and I just kept repeating it and repeating it. So yeah, I completely get that. I wanted to ask this question off of the back of that. How do you know? So you mentioned about surrendering. How do you know that you've surrendered into a new action? It is stop, but it also is into this new sort of way of being. How do you know it's that versus simply a new action to distract you from what you're doing right now? So how does somebody know, or what is the bridge between maybe where I am and new action and understanding that this is truly a surrender versus something different, like scrolling Facebook, right? To feel good in that moment, an endorphin hit versus a sustainable surrendered action or surrendered path. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. It is a feeling of being home.
Hmm.
The action you take is a feeling of like you are home. What does home want to feel like? Home wants to feel safe.
Yeah.
Home wants to feel loving. Home wants to feel like you've just landed in a safe, wonderful place. So that is the action that you take, and then that's the feeling that comes from it. So, for example, when I used to be a dental hygienist and I knew there was something more for me, I went to life coaching school. This was before like anyone really knew what a life coach was, but I was drawn to get a certification in life coaching. And the very first day, after I had heard the instructor talk about all these amazing things about personal development, I wrote on my piece of paper at the top of my paper, I am home. I surrendered that my identity was no longer a dental hygienist and that my identity was going to be a more organized way of helping people through life coaching. So that was the surrender, and that was the feeling of the action that I took to be in that room to write on my paper, "I am home."
For you at that point in your life, and I think about this for me, I've heard you say that you were no longer aligned with that role of being a dental hygienist. And a lot of people feel that way, right? Did you want to correct that? It looks like you wanted to say something there.
About me not being aligned with being a dental hygienist?
Yeah, I've heard you say I was no longer aligned with that. I think you even talked about how you prescribe medications or how prescribed medications are prescribed there. I heard it talk about things like fluoride that you just, hey, completely departed from.
That's right.
There's a lot of people that are listening, me included, that went through this moment or are going through this moment where they're feeling no longer aligned. You also talk, and I completely agree with you about, boy, whatever we were in our youth, our teenage years, we sort of depart from it and then find ourselves potentially later. I did that. I think you did that. The question is, were you ever aligned? Is somebody ever aligned with what they were when they feel misaligned at this point in life, 30, 35, 40, 40 years, 45 years old? Was there ever truly alignment? Or is it, yeah, that was alignment for a period and now you're in a different alignment? I just wanted to challenge that a bit. Were you ever actually aligned or was it simply a distraction from your true alignment?
I believe that everything that I have done, that my human body has taken me to, has been in alignment with my soul, with my essence. They've taken on different shapes and different forms. So, I'll quickly do the rundown of my life. I mean, on the playground at 7 years old, when Mary came up to me crying, I must have been doing or being something at that moment that said something or just was a being of hope and light that made her then walk away feeling happy. That was my first thought of like, oh, whatever just happened felt good to me. Then I was a candy striper. That was back in the days where, girls would go when they were like 13 or whatever, they'd go into hospitals, they'd give patients candy or get little games. And I was that same person, but just in a different role of helping. Then I went into being a dental hygienist, sat with over 40,000 patients. What was I doing? Who was I being? No different than who I was at 7 on the playground or the candy striper in the hospital. I was holding space for those people. I was hearing them, I was listening, I was seeing them, I was valuing them. Those are three aspects of the human being that we all need. And then I became a coach. What was I doing? Who was I being? Same thing. And
Yeah.
now I'm in energy work. Who am I being? What am I doing? Same thing. So you talk about alignment. I think we come in with a very core purpose and core skill set. We've just used it in various different ways. And I think suffering and the feeling of stuckness comes in when we're about to then expand that skill into a new way of being, and what that new what that new skill set will look like. Like every time I went, and jumped to a different uh, career, those are growing pains, and they don't always feel so good. And you have to be a beginner again, and no one likes to be a beginner. But I've embraced being a beginner. I want to be that beginner again. But I'm always that same beingness. I'm always that same essence that brings myself everywhere.
The purpose that you came into this world, how do you define it?
I'm here to raise human consciousness. I think that that is everyone's purpose when we get to the root.
Do you have a
We're
do you have a different does is your mission the same as that, or is your mission a different statement, or a different uh I don't know, a different statement?
I'm here to inspire and lift up people. That
I
is
love
my
this.
that is my mission. That is
Yeah.
my absolute mission. I was doing it as a little girl, and now all these years later, I continue to do it just in a different way.
It matters to me that there's a difference between those two for some reason. Purpose, mission. It matters to me. It's funny. I had said my life's purpose at some point was to inspire and motivate others to live their best life. And I realized, like, this is for me, in when we're going to get to quiet here, in a moment of weekend solitude, that actually my purpose, I define it as simply being seen. It could be significance that I desire or whatever it is. But if I'm not seen, then I can't execute the mission. Doesn't mean I have to be seen by everybody, but just to be seen, right? To have a public persona of some sort. I believe I was brought into the world with a gift to communicate and a gift to leverage the power of being seen in a positive way, which for me the mission then becomes to inspire and motivate others to live their best life. And I believe, this is me, that the purpose doesn't shift. The purpose is, the mission can. What do you say about those?
Mm. I agree with that. But I think that it's all in the awakening to the different various nuances that a mission can take on. So I think it's just that you're expanding that mission, and it's taking on a little different nuances, and so the wording will be different.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
like
you
that a
need
lot.
you need that wording. See, the human mind needs different wording to be able to grasp it and then create from there. The soul already knows what you're doing here, but the human needs that. And what I believe is that we are disconnected from the essence. We're disconnected from the soul, and we're just operating from the human mind and the matter of our bodies. So that is my passion, is to connect the human energy with the soul's energy. And together, wow, now you've got your best life when those two are collaborating and creating and working together.
That defines another term I was going to ask you to. Back to that. I want to get a couple more definitions from you. Can you define quiet? What does that mean for you?
Presence.
Is there a sustained amount of time that you feel as though you need to remain in presence or quiet in order for you to hear the soul, to connect with the soul, or is it any moment of presence for any duration of time?
Any moment,
How do
any moment.
you how do you go through the process of getting quiet?
Getting quiet to me, and I would challenge anyone listening to go through these exact steps. Getting quiet is, like I said, I spoke to that one person in the coffee shop. I was present to that moment. I tuned in and listened to this moment might be important. And I began to pay attention to my life. That's the first step. That's the first step in getting quiet. Pay attention to your life. The second step would be, like you were saying, driving to Michigan, like emptying out everything because we hold so much. Think about everything we've held through our lives. And we just hold, and we become so heavy, and our energy becomes so dense, and we become very weighed down. And this is where the monkey mind begins to unravel because we're just so heavy. We're not clear in our thinking. And then we have to fill ourselves up. We can stay empty in spaces of our lives, but we then, after we've emptied everything out, we do want to fill our lives up with something. And that could be, like you said, redefining your mission, getting really clear on the actions you want to take from there. Like for you, moving to the Dominican Republic and
Mm,
raising your family there and starting new ventures. Like you had to empty and then to refill in ways that were aligned with your soul. And so, how do you fill up and what do you fill up with? For me, it was to fill up with love, to fill up with compassion, to fill up with trust, and to fill up with faith. I had lost my conversations, my regular conversations. I had gotten um, off with having conversations with God, to that life force energy that I call God. You can call it whatever you want, but it's just that greater energy that I lost connection to. So I had to fill myself up and started to pray more and to believe and have that faith again. So I filled myself up with all of that. And when you fill yourself up with that, you feel connected, you feel home again. You feel that safety and that love within. We hear all the answers are within us. I wrote this book because I wanted to know, first of all, where is that within? Please do tell me. And if the answers are all within us, then I think I have to have the right questions to ask myself to find the answers within. So when you get quiet in this way, Jamie, this is what brings a human being to human kindness. And I think if I were to define my mission, like you said, because you're challenging me to right now, and I love this, it is to bring myself to higher states of human kindness and to be that example for the people closest to me and the world.
that's beautiful. You just came up with that?
Hey, sitting with you.
It's, well, it's funny.
God
Whenever I
only
do
knows what's going to happen for the next 30 minutes.
fair. But it's funny, before I do podcasts like this, where it's less, real estate market, tactical, it's less sort of like bang the chest and let's talk about numbers. When it is going to dive more into the nuance, into the spiritual, perhaps. I remember Sarah McCrum, Love Money, Money Loves You. Incredible episode. That's a great book that she wrote. I don't know if you've ever read it, but awesome book. S.D. Buffington, Dr. S.D. Buffington, Sherry Buffington, who wrote The Law of Abundance, and deeper concepts. I love to just sit, be quiet, meditate for a second, and honestly, as kooky as it might sound, see if I can find my soul's path to the person I'm about to talk to without ever having talked to you before. But can I tap in? And I don't know if I did or didn't, but it's fun to hear somebody like you get on something like this with an intention to not only deliver value, which you've done, but also challenge yourself and think through and ideate and come up with statements, ideas, concepts right here on the spot. So I don't know, kind of a cool moment. And I felt compelled to just share that for whatever reason. So appreciate you hearing me out on it. You talked about emptying everything out. Something came into my mind a moment ago about that, and I can't remember exactly what it was. So I may have to come back to it. But let's talk about energy points on the body. So you define, I believe, 8 different energy points. And I would love to roll through those with you, but I'm curious because as you talk about them, what I've heard mostly, they may relate more to women. One, are they applicable to men? And two, can we just, I can even give you each one if you'd like, and then you kind of respond to it, whatever's easiest for you. But can we go through them and talk about how to release energy, how to use these points to release energy?
Yes, I'm happy to take you through that,
Please.
if you'd like to do it that way. I'll give you some context, though. I believe that we are all here for a reason, and that is obviously what we've been talking about here. And there's something that actually really wants that there's an otherworldly entity. Call it your muse, call it God, whatever you call it. There's this energy that wants to find you specifically, Jamie, specifically Elaine, specifically all your listeners. Every person has this energy trying to find them to bring a certain aspect of expanding humanity, uh, to them, so they can help expand humanity. I believe that. So in that context, after I had gotten quiet enough to hear all this and change my whole life from being, a single mom to now my kids are thriving in their 20s, I'm in a beautiful, relationship, I have a coaching business that I love, and now I'm an author. God only knows I'd be the last person to ever write a book since I failed my senior high school English class. That's a whole other story. So anyway, all the odds were against me to even be where I am today. How did that happen? I got quiet. I did my, prescriptive paths, and then something I didn't see coming happened. One day, I was so tapped in to this energy, so tapped in, the synchronicities were just going crazy in my life, that I started to literally download or channel. I know this sounds woo woo and crazy, and I'm the last person to be woo woo and crazy, let me tell you. But literally, I feel like those outer worldly entities found me because I was in a place of emptiness. I was in a place of receptivity
Open. Yeah.
because I was in a loving state, a compassionate state, a trusting state, a faithful state to receive this. And this is what I received. I received 8 energy points that anyone can use, male or female, to help them heal. Heal mind, heal body, and spirit. So that's the context of how this came to me. And I believe I believe every single person on this planet has this. And it's funny because when the world was shut down a few years ago and the world got quiet, was forced to get quiet, a lot of people were getting their muse or this energy to find them. And I think that's why there's so much conversation now about expansion and human consciousness and new modalities appearing. I mean, it's really an exciting time because I feel like people were quiet enough that they emptied, like I was talking about, to receive. So the 8 energy points are, and in this order, would be and I do this as a healing for myself. Like, let's just say I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep. I will do this on myself, and I teach my clients how to do this.
Hmm.
The first point is our abdomen, because that's our life force area. That's where all life begins, and our center of creativity. So we focus on the abdomen. And if you imagine just closing your eyes in a state of relaxation, like in the middle of the night, lying in bed. And you just kind of like, are there any images when you focus on your belly? Are there any images that come to mind?
Just be present with it. Be present with
Yes,
that moment, with that part of your body.
yes.
Okay.
And see what comes up. So there's a lot of images that people will see. Like I've had people see literally waves of, like literally ocean waves going like this back and forth along their belly. And they actually wait till the ocean waves kind of subside, and then they settle, and then they go to the next energy point. And the next energy point, that's just one example. Someone can visualize anything happening in that energy center. The second energy center is your heart region. Again, you'll visualize anything that comes up there, any visualizations, any sensations, any memories that you might have around your heart. The third is the head. So again, we're visualizing anything that may come up around your head region. And then the fourth are your hips, and we call those the little cup-shaped areas of your hips called the ilium. And in those ilium areas is where a lot of emotions get stored. And so I have a lot of people just go like this and take out, like imagine you're just taking out all these emotions, just pulling them out like yarn that's crumbled up in your ilium, in your hips, and it just floats away. Those are your emotions. The next point would be the feet. And the feet are interesting because it's a grounding. How can we ground into the earth? But it's not the grounding I thought it always was. And this was a surprise to me. So we do ground our energy into the earth, but then I also saw and visualized these rays of light that kind of hit us, our frontal lobe, and shoot up into the heavens. So it's a grounding down and a grounding up. And it's fascinating and it's beautiful when you actually visualize your whole body grounding in this way. The next would be your legs. And the knees, particularly, because the knees are what, like metaphorically, our knees move us forward in life when we walk. And so there can be a lot of stuck energy under the kneecaps. So these are all visualizations. That's why it's so fun, because everyone's got their own visualizations for their bodies at different times. Like one
Yeah.
day you could visualize one thing and next day another. But it's all in the intention of shifting one's energy. Because when we feel stuck and nothing moves, nothing can change. When our energy is stuck, nothing can heal. So this is the intention of why we're doing all this. So you see the energy release under the kneecaps and let it just watch it float away, put the kneecaps back on. It's just fun, it's playful.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next point would be your tailbone, which the message I got was that we hold intuition in our tailbone. And there's so many times we've been injured based upon the sports we've played. For women, it's like maybe childbirth or that we're sitting all day. Like there's a lot of stuck energy in the tailbone. So we visualize that area, get it moving again, and your thoughts become things, as you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can change the state of your being by doing this. The very last point are the tops of our shoulders. And that to me is that is like the grand finale. It's like on the 4th of July, the fireworks. Because what we see on the tops of our shoulders, if we go like this, and it's almost like we're giving ourselves a hug, but at the same time, in that moment, we have these rays of light, Jamie, that I saw shoot up into the infinite of the infinite of the infinite, gather all of the information and bring it back down in through the shoulders and soars throughout our whole entire body, every cell of our body, bringing us healing and love. And so those are the 8 energy points, and they're very, very powerful. And if you know someone who's not well, if you yourself are not well, if your child has a cold or isn't well mentally, emotionally, do these energy points on them. And you can do them telepathically. You could do them if you're a mom or dad in your bedroom and you know your child is suffering in the other bedroom because they were bullied that day or whatever, do these energy points on them.
Hmm.
Shift and help them. You can do this. This is real. This is what was brought down to me, and it's very exciting.
Is that the necessary order? I'm just
This,
thinking I'm going to need a Post-it note tonight in the middle of the night with all of the with
yeah,
all of the points for me. But I'm serious. Like, is it? Hey, look, that's the order. It kind of middle up, middle down, and then back up. Is that the order, or is it like, as long as you touch the energy points, then you're doing well.
that is the order.
I love that.
If you go back and find that there was a particular energy point that really brought like a big brought attention to you, then you can go back individually to that point. But in order to really, this is a body scan, and this is the order you scan your body in order to know what energy point needs attention.
Hmm.
And so in Get Quiet, I do relate the energy point in our body to what your focus, what you need to focus on, what you need to expand and work on, so to speak, in your life.
Can you give an
So
Can you give an example of one?
yeah, so like the heart energy in the book, that's all about opening your heart. And it correlates with our environment. How healthy is our environment? How healthy are we in our relationships? How healthy is our actual workspace or home? Is it cluttered? Um, are our relationships healthy or are they unhealthy? To the point of, who's sleeping in our bed? Like really cleaning and clearing out um, our environments so that our heart energy stays open and isn't blocked.
Hmm. I remember the question I was going to ask, and I think it relates here. I was referencing emptying everything, and so on and so forth. A definition I'll ask you for, you've talked about, because this one really, really hit me, and I didn't know what it was in a psychedelic retreat that I did. But the concept of a spirit team. Can you define that? What is a spirit team? And we'll go from there.
Well, we could have a whole 2-hour conversation
I
just
know.
on
I
that
know.
one.
I know this is huge. I mean, for anyone listening, like this is something that you talk about the interaction, like you put words to something I've been trying to describe for over a year and a half that I experience and that I tap into now. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what it was. Components of me, I would say, elements of who I am, like a conference table with all parts of my being, like all these different things I would call it. But I'd love to hear you talk about spirit team. And I want to dive into that in the context of, well, let's start with that. What is a spirit team from your perspective?
Again, it is these energies that we can't see, but that are there. They are anywhere from a loved one who has crossed over, who's helping us, because that's what they do, I believe. It's God, it's your higher power, whatever you call that energy. We have angels, we have guides, we have a whole spirit team helping us. And when we are not awakened to that, we suffer.
Hmm. How much does being in tune with and finding this, and maybe we'll talk about how to, this spirit team or defining it for yourself, how much does that accelerate your ability to leverage the release of these energy centers, if at all?
I mean, I wouldn't say that you have to have faith and trust in a spirit team
Right.
to get the benefits of healing in these energy centers we just talked about. And at the same time, if you combined the human part of you shifting, as well as knowing that in your visualizations, your spirit team is actually bringing you visions to help you.
Yeah.
So in combination, wow, now you've really got something.
That's what I was getting at. Like I can imagine the fuel on the fire. Like you said, if you focus on these energy centers, it's a meditative practice, right? Going through in order these centers and releasing. And I love the vision of the ocean coming calm or whatever that might be. But that's a good one to really play off of, I guess you could say, in my opinion. when I went through, I did psilocybin twice. First time was very dark, very, very dark, big confrontation with my ego. And then I did constellation healing with my ego, literally confronted the human version of it, and did a lot of work to heal a relationship with it that I had as the conscious being, or whatever you want to call it. That's how I define it. I had sort of kicked aside. Ego's bad. Stay away from me. You're bad. Even though I wasn't acknowledging the role ego played in everything that I've done. So learning to partner with it. But in my second psychedelic session, it was this conference table, metaphorically, with my sense of humor was there. My kids, my wife, I could feel those energies there. My ego was sitting at the table, maybe cross-armed, like, I'm not so sure I trust this, but I'm here. I came to the meeting. I'm good. Let's hear what this is all about. Right. That was my ego at the table. And as I worked through this deep mushroom tripping thing that I was doing with guidance, I remember coming out of it during, like, or at least allowing my conscious self to ask questions of my guide, and then take those questions or what she said and bring it back to my spirit team. And so
Mm.
I'm doing this sort of consultation and even asking at times, like, hey, conscious me needs you to float up an image or a word that makes sense. I feel something, but I can't interpret it. Can you? And it would. It was crazy, trippy, woo, to your point. But I was going through it in the physical. It was unbelievable. But when I left, or when I was coming out of that session toward the end of it, I remember hearing, when you need something, you know where we are. And the further I got away from that session, the harder it is to just sort of conjure instantly. But in a deep meditated state, doing something like what you talked about, man, as you say this, going through these 8 energy centers, the first thing that came to mind is like, oh, if I could tap into that spirit team at the same time. And I think you described it really well. The ability for it to co-create, from of this team to co-create the experience with me, to give me the imagery, give me the energy, and then knowing where it's from. A tremendous power in that. I'll let you react. I don't know if anything comes out. There's not really a question there, but I'll
Well,
just float that over your way and see what you have to say.
I will first say thank you for um, giving and gifting yourself the experience of a psilocybin journey.
Yeah,
I think the world would be a much better place if we all were able to do that. And I know I'm sounding like the poster child for psilocybin journeys, but I
it's
did one.
exploring your spirituality, right? It's
Hmm.
it's just it's simply taking extreme, if you will, measures, ones that we're conditioned not to. I grew up in the 80s. Nancy Reagan told me, no, say no to drugs, right? So, so to do that, having never even smoked a joint, honestly, in my life, was a major departure from clean cut Jamie, who grew up in the perfect suburban household and everything. But oh my goodness, the depth it takes you to. It was a second opinion on reality. The first time I had it, well, the first and second time I'd ever had that. So just furthering your point, but please continue. I apologize for stepping on you there.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I love to know this about you. This experience made you what a much better human being,
100%.
a much more awakened being. And if that's what we're doing here, then I mean, no amount of I believe no amount of talk therapy can get you to these places.
No. No.
So thank you for doing that. And thank you now for then bringing this information that you tapped into out into the world to make a difference. That's why we're here. So that's what I would say about that. And it's not that you have to become a drug addict. No one's saying that. But there is extreme value in a safe container in a psilocybin journey with someone who can monitor you
Yeah.
and that you can tap into the unconscious, to the infinite, in ways you just can't otherwise. And I know that the one time I did a few years ago psilocybin, I'm in Arizona, so it was like the middle of summer, and I was just totally in this state of being out there, and I remember shivering to the point where this shaman I was with had to put like
Heavy.
4 blankets on me, and she
Same.
was just sweating and sweating, and I was shivering and shivering. I was completely in a somatic response, and my body was releasing the pain that I had been holding, for a few, different traumatic moments in my life. And so this is the energy shift. This is why energy to me is the future of medicine. It's the future of healing. It's these somatic responses. It's the 8 energy points. Whatever we can do to shake ourselves, to shake our body, to shake our soul, to shake everything out that doesn't need to be attached to us anymore. And so I truly believe this is energy shifting and moving in the ways that will support and ultimately heal us at the root.
I couldn't agree more. And to your point, it depending on who you are, what you feel about it, it can seem a little over the top. Like, come on, do you really have to get out of your mind in order to advance or whatever? And no, the answer is no. But what I've learned and what really made me even try it was, hey, look, you're in Genius Network. I'm in GoBundance, right? Two masterminds with high performing individuals. I mean, the ones that you really look up to, the ones that you look at like, wow, this person, like, they're tapped into something. Like, what the hell? I don't know if it's your experience, but like all or almost all of them experiment with their spirituality, whether it's psychedelics or ketamine treatment or, ayahuasca. I mean, any of these things, right? Like it could be as extreme as that, all the way down to something more tame, if you will. But they all do, right? They all do in some way, and that to me was like, wow. Maybe tactically, I was like, that's the secret. Go get high, see what happens.
Well, I think for very high achieving entrepreneurs like ourselves, we know that when we're in the doing, when we're stuck in the muck of doing, no matter what level of success, say financially, we get to, we always feel something is still missing.
Mhm.
That happens to all of us. We've all gotten to that point. There's still something missing. Okay, I've got $100 million in the bank, but there's still something missing.
Mhm.
And it is that tuning in, that interconnection, that awakening of our souls. It's again, like I said, it's the human of the doing that got you to the million, desperately longing for the connection to the soul and to your essence. That is what's missing. I believe what's missing in all of our lives is that we're missing ourselves in a deep sense. So during the psilocybin journey, or however people awaken, which spirituality to me is just paying attention and awakening to your life. However, somebody gets there through meditation, through these energy points I talk about, whatever, that is the magic. That is the secret sauce that we're all really longing for. But we don't know, we just don't know. We don't know what we've been longing for. This is what we're longing for.
Quiet and or solitude, I think, are probably the most practical ways to tap into these things we've talked about: spirit team, your inner being, connection with source, whatever it might be. If you didn't want to go the route, obviously, of a psychedelic or anything like that, something mind altering. But the one thing about, or not but, and the one thing about psychedelics that I learned was, yeah, all right, people have done shrooms for years, right? And they'll tell me about their trip when they were 18. But the nuance is when I did it, when you do it, when somebody does it with intention, is just that, is the intention, setting one. If somebody's going to say, all right, look, you two are tripping out on shrooms, good luck to you, but this quiet thing sounds interesting to me. I'd like to take a stab at that. Spend a weekend away, an hour, a day, whatever it might be, and truly get quiet. Do you recommend, or is it necessary to set an intention for that duration? Or is it just enough to simply commit to being quiet? The key to life, it isn't money, it's happiness. And when you measure how happy you are, you actually become even more happy. Our friends at GoBundance, the Tribe of Millionaires, use a very specific tool to measure their happiness. It's called the Life Happiness Index, and you can have it too. Go over to GoBundance.com/LHI and take your Life Happiness Index assessment. You'll rate yourself in multiple categories on exactly how happy you are and get a custom output for you specifically that you can use in developing whatever goals you have for your life. GoBundance is the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous people who choose to live epic lives. And the tool GoBundance members use at the base of all of that is the Life Happiness Index. Get out there and grab life big.
It's a great question. And the answer would be, you don't have to do things perfectly. But why wouldn't you want to do something at least effectively?
I like that.
So, yeah, you can go get quiet and just be in a place where there's no noise. And that's fine. You're going to hear your soul's voice. There's no doubt about it. You will hear your soul's voice. This is what I do every day with my clients. I take them into quiet places so they can hear the messages for themselves. But when we start any retreat session, I do one on one retreat sessions, we always start with intention. Intention is the catalyst for the energy to move in the direction of your benefit. So I can't speak more highly enough about the energy around creating intention with all parts of your life. And I love how, Jamie, how you said, before our conversation today, you tapped into my work, you tapped into my energy. That is the pure intention that I believe creates success. When we believe that we are energy, being able to connect telepathically with one another and tap into that person's energy field and send love or whatever intention you want for the conversation or the outcome or whatever you want for this, whatever blessing you want to place on any conversation or being. This is real. And I also tapped into you as well before. So we were on the same level.
Why we got this. That's why we got this. Quick side story on that. I'm assuming you've heard of constellation healing, yeah?
Not really. Please
Oh,
do tell.
so the idea of constellation healing is an exercise you go through with other people where you essentially represent to each other typically generational trauma. So 7 of you go into a room, 8 of you go into a room. You've got a guide. Mine was a licensed psychologist who's really tapped in on the spiritual as well as the sort of the neuroscience of psychology. And she sort of meditates everybody into the space, and then the question is, who's feeling called to confront either something generationally, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, some break, some trauma, and or what they call a meta position. Mine was my ego. And to your point, I walk into this room with these bean bags and I'm like, what am I doing here? There's a bunch of women and me, right? Some of them are wearing like tie dye, and then here I am in my polo shirt, like a standard, you know. And I'm sitting there like I'm going to tap in to, I'm going to know when I'm supposed to pop up and say something. So the psychologist does this meditation, and she's like, I'm kind of like internally eye rolling, and she goes, "Who's feeling called to, I don't know what the word is, like confront?" And I stood up in my khakis. I stood up. Unbelievable. And she's like, "Okay, who do you want to confront?" And for most, it's it's like, as we went through it, it was a parent or something like that. And then it gets into like the parent's parent, and like you can go back generations and heal generational trauma through constellation healing. But I wanted to confront my ego. And then another woman, or a woman across the room, says, I'll represent the ego. So people physically represent the mother, the father, whatever. They're like, you move them around the room based on what you feel is the right positioning as the person that's sort of the center of this constellation, right? You're creating this sort of, imagine a constellation of stars. So this woman stands up and she kind of like dips into the energy of my ego, and holy shit, her arms folded. She's looking away. And I was like, that's my freaking ego. I mean, that's it. Holy cow. And then I'm walking toward it. She's making me the psychologist. I can't look at it. We talk about society. Society stands up. This lady over here who says, "Oh, I'll be society." She felt called to it. This crazy, crazy. If you're looking at it from a drone, like, what's going on with the bald white dude, like not wanting to look at the lady who says she's society, right? It was absolutely insane. But to your point, like that was the beginning of, because psychedelics, I understood the cause. I took this thing and it trips my brain out. But now I went in fully sober to this room with a bunch of hippies, my words, and somehow just stood up and felt called to go confront a woman playing my ego. Silly, but incredibly powerful. And as we went through, like, I was done, physically exhausted. And the next person goes and they ask me to play to play or represent the mother, not even the father, but the mother. I'm the only dude in the room. And then I had to tap into the energy of this mother, and I'm saying things that's making her cry because I'm apparently channeling her. Freaking crazy. That's constellation healing. But anyway, I tell that story to say the idea of tapping into energy sources, like I would have been, especially as a corporate guy, like, all right, you lost me. Nice to meet you. Have a good day. I'm out. But that experience showed me, like, wow, we really are what a cell phone is, what a light is. We're all just molecular beings, atomic beings. We are simply energy. And when you enter the right grid, the right field, when you tune into the right dial, boy, what can happen? So anyway, I have no idea why I shared that, but I thought I would. But I wanted to ask you this question, and then you can comment on that if you'd like. But for intention, you said it well. It's not you don't have to do it the right way, but there's a more effective way. Can you give a sense of like what maybe you have this in retreats, like are there intentions that can be overly specific or overly vague for that matter, or is any intention somebody sets enough? Can you give guidance on intention setting, if at all?
It's being in a state where you're not in your overthinking mind. When we're in our overthinking mind, we get into detail after detail after detail,
So true.
after being, attached to the outcome of the detail, to the detail. I mean, it's just that is not a healthy way of setting an intention. I just did a recording that I'm actually offering as a as a as a as a bonus to ordering my book, and I was with Barry Goldstein, who's a master composer. He's won Grammy awards. He's done all the music to Joe Dispenza's work. Like, he's a master of
Wow.
composing music, and
Okay.
I had the opportunity to compose a meditation with him recently, and it was wonderful. We sat in his recording studio, and the first thing he did was he grabbed my hands and he said, "Let's set an intention for today." I have never had anybody do that with me. And I was like, "Well, of course." I mean, I had come in with my own intention, but like for another human being to sit with you and actually hold your hand and connect that way, you obviously that something special is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, and something did special, and something happened that was very special. And the intention for me, and we set our intentions out loud, and they were very simple because they were very heart-centered. We had dropped, just by the energy of us holding hands in a sacred place, and him being in his essence, me being in mine, we had dropped from our overthinking mind down into our hearts, into our souls, and the intentions were very simple. They were not detailed. They might have been a few sentences, and that was it.
Wow. I like that. I like that a lot. The book comes out in April. Obviously, you're encouraging others to experiment, try, use these steps to get quiet. If there was an ideal outcome beyond, what would that be for the person reading this book that you would love to hear about? Beyond the fact that they leverage quiet, what would be the ideal outcome for a reader of this book?
I've already been hearing outcomes from others. And when you're in it, it's like when you're in the jar and you can't see out, sometimes you don't know what the outcomes are going to be. You know what the outcome was. I know what the outcome was for me because it was my journey that I took.
Sure.
And, but it's fun to see what the outcomes of others have been. So, to answer your question, the two outcomes that I have heard from people that I really admire who've read the book, one said that it opened her heart in a way that she never could ever have even accessed that. She's a very successful entrepreneur. She happens to be a single working mother of like four children, and she had been closed. Her heart has been closed because of her recent experiences. And so she said, "Elaine, this has opened my heart." The other person, which I love, so opening your heart, of course, that goes back to the result will be human kindness.
Mm.
The other person is a friend of mine who's a very famous, let's say, author, uh, um, uh, professor of, at a prestigious university. He texted me recently and said, Elaine, I have been I have been trying to think of and create the course title for my next spring course, and it hasn't come to me. And when I read Get Quiet, I was able to create and hear what the course title is. And so it's this opening of the heart, creation, being able to create again. That lights me up.
I love this. So you're essentially creating a movement where people can tap into that sort of news ticker internally and see it clearly as a it's bubbling, it's in there, it's somewhere. How do you layer down to get to the point where you can see it and hear it clearly? I love that.
100%.
I love that.
100%. You got it.
Elaine, where could people learn more about you? Website. I know Amazon, I'm sure, has the book coming out, but where can people learn more
Yeah.
about you and to get the bonuses? Where can they order it? Give us everything.
I'm super excited about this because the getquiet.com will have the bonuses. The bonuses is you'll access the first chapter of Get Quiet, and you'll access this meditation, this guided meditation, this beautiful music that Barry and I did together. It's a 6-minute meditation. It's a wonderful, say, pre-state to get yourself into before you're doing those energy points, or just to be able to lie in a place with your earbuds in and just let go and relax to this beautiful meditation to get you in a state of quiet. And so they can find me there at getquiet.com and get those bonuses, or elaineglass.net, and that's where you can sign up for my newsletter, my weekly newsletter, and we'll keep in touch that way.
Beautiful. Elaine, thank you so much for tapping in with me and getting into this. It was so much fun. Thank you again.
So cool. Great to be here with you. Thank you so much.